Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we are looking at player props here on Saturday as the NBA playoffs roll along. Got a couple games here with the C's and the C's, the Cavs and the Celtics, as well as those Mavs and the Thunder kicking things off in the afternoon here, out here on the West Coast anyway. Definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page. We've got best bets up in a separate video on top of these player props that we're bringing you now each and every day moving forward throughout these playoffs. Also want to head to thelines.com and check out that player prop tool, player prop finder, I should say, so you can make sure that you're finding the best odds and lines here for these player props that you want to make in the NBA postseason. Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first pick here, talking about, I'm not going to call him MVP snub, but a candidate who almost made it, and that was SGA.
Yeah, that's everybody's stance, right? It's like, I'm not saying he should have won, but let's just talk about this. Like, no, but SGA in this series is a problem for Dallas, obviously. Over 35.5 points and assists is where I would go, leaving out the rebounds, which have kind of been a crazy outlier for him so far in the series. But the points and assists are going to still be there because Dallas can't guard him. Leading scorer for the game at plus 155. I mean, he's outscored Luka in both so far. He's been the leading scorer in both so far. I don't necessarily see that changing the way OKC is guarding Kairuka, right? And just like forcing other guys to beat them. But I mean, with SGA, yeah, 26 drives this series, which is second in the playoffs at this point. 14.5 points per game, and he's only shooting 48% versus on the season he shot 57%, had 2 more points per game on drives. So room to go up there. And you say, well, what about this matchup? 22.5 points per game in the two that mattered against Dallas, 65% on drives, kicked it out 11 times. That only generated 2 assists. So still room to go up there. I mean, the assists have been coming home in this series, 8.5 on 13.5 potentials. But I mean, that's still, potentials assists that we talked about OKC getting 13 open threes per game and only hitting 31% and them being a much better 3-point shooting team than that. So I think that will continue to be a factor. Giddey might be out of the starting lineup by the time this video comes out, right? I mean, he did not start the second quarter, right? The second half, excuse me. Andrew Wiggins replaced him. That lineup, if you just replace the starting lineup with Wiggs, is 138 offensive rating, 3 assists to turnover. With Isaiah Joe instead of him, 150 offensive rating, 6.0 assists to turnover ratio. And with Giddey, it's 80 offensive rating, 1.0. So, I mean, that's just like taking another ball handler, another assist potential guy out of there and putting even more onus on SGA, right? Even more usage and better spacing because Dallas is daring Giddey to shoot. They're putting their centers on him at times. And I mean, yeah, that's Dallas. Derek Jones Jr. is not playing much because he has not been able to deal with SGA. PJ Washington is trying, but it's kind of an unnatural matchup for him. And I mean, SGA can just like get a switch anytime he wants, really, because OKC is so versatile like that. He's like, all right, let me get Luka on me, and now I'm just like literally buy you anytime. Like, they're what do the kids say? Buy her. Yeah, that's when Luka's on him.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I mean, really, the leading scorer one comes down to like. Do you think Luka can sustain some of that brilliance he had for, large spurts of the first half anyway? And can he sustain that in the second half? Like, it still seems somewhat questionable. I mean, he sounds like he said that, yesterday that was the hardest game I've ever played. One day back, flew into Dallas. I don't know. I mean, not that far, I guess, from OKC, but either way, actually really, really close. But either way, not something that you want to be doing when you've got a swollen knee, either, and changing elevations, whatever. Moving past that, I do think it's something that like maybe it's a little bit harder for him to score, but I'm going to go with a rebounds bet here. And it's one of those head-to-heads. I think, just full disclaimer, like, I do still like Chet under 8.5 boards as well in this game. I think that's a pretty good look. But I'm taking him to go under. I'm taking Luka to out rebound him by 2 rebounds. So it's -1.5 for Luka on the head-to-head rebounds. You get that for -105. And the rebound chances have been basically the same for them in the first 2 games. But what's really interesting is Chet had 22 rebound chances in game 1 and pulled down 6 of them. And look, I mean, that's a really low rebound percentage, and he had one during the regular season. It was like 52%. If you look at most centers in the league, like the top dudes, obviously they're up at like damn near 70% of the rebound chances that they get boards. And so Chet being all the way down there is like, I don't really care what his chances were when he's guarding Gafford down low. It's a problem. And even if he's guarding Gafford and has position to obviously get the defensive rebound, Gafford's still moving him out of the way and getting him. And to a degree, so is Lively. And at the same time, he's also like, on offense, I understand he's pretty good offensive rebounder, but he's really not coming in a good position at that point, especially because he took a lot of the threes that went up for that team yesterday, 6 of them that he took, which obviously also hinders his ability to get down there and get offensive boards. But at any rate, I think for the season, you also look at that. Like he's at, like I said, about a 52% rebound chance percentage, and that's on 13 rebounds per game. And even if you give him about 2 more minutes that he's averaging now in the playoffs rather than the regular season, it's still below 8.5. Like 9 is like at least one too many. It's one too many. Let's put it that way. It's one too many that we're getting that for him. And so like if you peg Luka for the 10 that I think is still good. I mean his rebound prop is at 9.5, and the over is -104, so it's still not the highest implied probability of that occurring, but it's still high enough for me that I'm like the edge is there for Luka at -105 if you extrapolate all that out. So with Luka, also just the last point years, like a lot of his rebounds are basically because he's guarding low usage players. It's not like Luka's going up and like skying over guys or doing the best boxing out job he can possibly do against big guys. A lot of it is like if there's nobody trying to get an offensive board, then he's just there to get the rebound because he's standing in the baseline guarding the dude in the corner like Lou Dort or Kason Wallace or Aaron Wiggins. Those are his all 3 of those dudes. He guarded the same exact amount of time for how often they were on the court, right? And so that just tells you like he's going to be in a good spot to get those easy pickups, whereas Chet's working way harder. And the Mavericks have been nasty, right? Since they got Gafford, it was stark. They were one of the worst teams at limiting centers in the beginning of the season. The last 30 games of the season, they're 6th best in terms of limiting rebounds to centers, top 10 in limiting points as well. So the turnaround was clear, and Gafford was a huge reason for that.
Yeah, Gafford is all over Chet, and it's everything he can do to just kind of bat the ball out and let it be a free-for-all. And that's how OKC is getting rebounded and actually done a pretty good job with it, but it's not resulted in a lot for Chet. And on the other end, like Gafford defers to Doncic. Like they all do, kind of like if there's a rebound that multiple Mavs are going for, they're just like, all right, Luka, you take it because you're bringing it up anyway. Right. And that's kind of how he pads all those stats. So yeah, do like that. I mean, this is an interesting one I got here is PJ Washington to hit 3 threes. And the books initially were hanging like +140 everywhere. They were like, this isn't going to happen again. 7 for 11. That's an outlier. We'll take your money. And then they're like, oh, man, we're taking a lot of money here. And now it's all like +110. They're like, okay, maybe it could happen. Maybe this is the guy with the 3rd highest touches on the team. And Maxi Kleber is out. And now he gets a ton of catch and shoot opportunities as the main safety outlet for Kairuka, and OKC continues to guard them with kind of like a reckless help. I mean, to the degree that they continue to give up these high frequency of corner threes, which they did all season, and which maybe they'll try to shore up a little bit after PJ burned them that bad. But I mean, he's going to get his opportunities. He's shooting 62% on catch and shoot threes over his last 3 now, 2 in this series, and then the Clippers close out. 93% effective field goal percentage that accounts for. And of course, he has not had any catch and shoot opportunities inside the arc. I said 3rd most touches on the team, but he averages 0.8 dribbles per touch. So yeah, it's very clear what he's going to do. You get the ball, it's going up. And yeah, I mean, we remember Herb Jones going 8 for 24 last series. I mean, that's the exact same type of defense from OKC. Is they're like, we're going to funnel it out to the corner, dare you to beat us. I mean, he did beat you last game, so maybe chase him off a little bit, but I still think he gets like 6 to 8 attempts up right now, and the basket's got to look pretty big for him after draining all those and being one of the most important players in that game, playing 40 minutes. Like he's just going to be out there enough that I think he gets his opportunities to at least hit 3 here.
Yeah, it should be there for him. I mean, you need him to stay out of foul trouble, obviously, as well. Something he's done pretty consistently in the playoffs. But yeah, he's their catch and shoot guy, which is wild, especially because with Tim Hardaway Jr. such a small part of this team at this point, they tried to get him out there for some catch and shoot stuff, but he still just didn't maintain the minutes splitting them and not even evenly with guys like Josh Green. But PJ Washington's the best spot up shooter on the starting lineup outside of Kyrie, who it's not quite what he's getting as much, but right, like that is one dude that's not allowed to catch and shoot quite as much is Kyrie Irving, but PJ is going to keep getting him. So yeah, I think the attempts are there. Like I don't see Daigneault stopping that, and so you can look at that as one of two ways. Daigneault's not the coach of the year, isn't scared of PJ Washington, so why would you back him to make threes? Or you can go, I don't really care. He's going to be an NBA player who's proven himself to be able to make 40% of his threes at times with this Mavericks squad. So if he's going to be open for like 8 to 10 3-point attempts, I'm going to take him to hit 3 at that point, which he's a better percentage shooter than that anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out here with a little first quarter parlay that hit last game, which is Tatum to get 6+ points in the first quarter, Brown, Jalen to get 5+ first quarter points as well. That's even money on DraftKings. And really, this is just like it's not just a hit rate thing, but it's definitely in part a hit rate thing, combined with the fact that these dudes are going to be like, crap, we did it again. We gotta win a pivotal game here, tied at 1-1 in a series when we're clearly the better team, like we just did against Miami and have done numerous times now since last year's playoffs, right? And that's just going to give them even more motivation. Now, Brown is now 7 of 7 in the playoffs in terms of getting 5 or more points in the first quarter. He's averaging 7.6 in the first quarter. And on the regular season, that's what he did too, 7.2. He's gotten 5+ in now. We'll make it 67 of 82 games this year. That's about an 83% hit rate. And against Cleveland in all 5, averaging 9 points per game. We know he went crazy in game 1 with the 15 in the first quarter. But it's really the shots that keep being there for him. I'm actually way less scared of him than I am of Tatum. And it's interesting to me that the books give Tatum the higher number of expectation. Probably he's the more well-known player, but he still was aggressive in this last game. And I don't expect that to change. Like that's kind of what I was saying. I kind of liked over before I would have taken an under for Tatum in that last game for his points, which was at about 26, 27.5, depending where you got it. But like, then he just stopped in the second half. So I do think he's going to continue to be aggressive in the first quarter and the first half in general as he tries to continue to get himself out of the funk that he was in before last game. And then it's not like he went back into it. He just wasn't quite as aggressive in the second half, to be honest, which was a big problem. And I think that if you're, Joe Mazzulla, you just say, look, you come out aggressive and then you stay aggressive in the third quarter and punch him in the mouth, which they just did not do in game 1. But for Tatum, he's still gone over in both games this series. He's against Cleveland, he's gone over in 4 of 5 first quarters. The only one being the one that he played 8 minutes, one of the first games of the season in early November. And then really everything else since then, he's played 12 minutes in the last 2 in the first quarter. So he's the dude coming out in the second quarter, not the first. So that's partly probably why there's got to be something showing the books that he's getting more minutes in the first quarter. And so that's why his prop is higher, which makes sense. But Jaylen Brown is a bully. There's still nobody that can guard him. Even when he goes into the lane, he's stronger than Evan Mobley, which he proved in game 1 in the first quarter when he made 2 buckets barreling into Evan Mobley and just tossing it up, and they went in. And I'll continue to take that. That's also why they both are averaging now 3.5 free throws in the first quarter. So there's a lot of outs for them to get this, and they're both just going to come out and be like, we got to do this thing to just put this game away as fast as possible and prove that we're still far and away the best team in the East.
Yeah, you made a compelling case. I mean, I think I'm just too close to this to really want to get involved. But also the Celtics are just so balanced, like I'm saying, and these guys don't necessarily play all 12 minutes, but they will come out aggressive. I mean, Jalen has not been playing 12 minutes in the first quarter, but like you said, he is the ultimate start fast, especially when we need a response here. I don't know about Tatum's mindset at this point. I don't know. I'm sure he's just such a boom bust guy that he could easily have 3 in the first and then 15 in the second, which I believe happened at this stage in the Miami series. As he just kind of settles into the game because he's just in a bit of a funk at some point. I had one more lean, which is Derek Jones under 8.5 points because I mentioned he can't guard SGA. Got benched for most of the second half. Needed 21% usage to get his 9 points in game 2 and only had a 9% usage in game 1 and doesn't do much other than put back dunks and lobs. So if he's not out there for extended minutes, I think that's just a look there if you want an under to look at.
Yeah. And my only response to that would be corner 3 shooter versus OKC. Just one thing to consider as well. But yeah, he's not making them. And the fact that he can't guard, we'll see what happens with the minutes too. I'm very interested in that because he still had 28 in the game of this last game, but didn't play quite as much in the second half. And In part, also maybe there's times where Luka wasn't on the floor and he's just not impactful without Luka on the floor. And if he's not going to be able to guard SGA and Luka's not on the floor to toss him lobs or throw it to him in the corner wide open, then yeah, Derrick Jones Jr.'s value definitely dips majorly. So let's see what happens there. But I would lean under for 8.5 for him before I would go over, especially because I think he was at 7.5 just in game one. And so now you're getting a premium to have to take an over. And that's definitely when you dip there. So buy the dip rather. But that is all the time we have for you in player props for Saturday here. Continue to follow along, subscribe to that page if you would. We're coming back to you with these player props and those best bets that we have up in a separate video moving forward throughout these playoffs. So until we see you next, happy betting.